So it is Wednesday, October 13th at the time of filming this video, and there's a few brand new Nintendo Switch related news stories that dropped that I want to share with you guys, starting with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as we have brand new gameplay footage that we have not seen previously, and I want to go over that here today. Then we also have to dive into what Metroid Dread is actually doing to the entire Metroid franchise across all the Nintendo various eShops that are out there. Then the big talking point for today's video is Nintendo Switch OLED and how the launch has been going so far and what it may mean for future revisions of the console. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we are covering a few different stories today, starting with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as these games will already be out next month on November 19th, if you guys can believe that. And it has been quite some time since these games' original releases, as you know, they actually came out originally back in 2006 on the DS OG model. And as we get closer to the release of these games, I'm actually very pumped to do my first full playthrough of Diamond and Pearl, because if you guys don't know or haven't been around on the channel for a while, I've always been a huge fan of the Pokemon series. I mean, I got into it with the card game and the anime back in the 90s, but then as time went on, I only ended up playing a lot of the Game Boy games because they were actually able to be played on a TV with something like the GameCube Game Boy player, and that's how I went through the majority of the Pokemon titles that I have experienced. And so when Diamond and Pearl went to the DS and you could only really play it on handheld, and to this day we have not really had a way to actually play DS games on any traditional big style TV, and that's just how I like to play most of the time, even though I will say, side note, the OLED is slowly changing that, as I do find myself playing it more in handheld mode because that display is big enough and it's just so bright and vibrant. But over the course of time, I have always been primarily a home console gamer, and I like the things to be on the TV big screen, and I sit up super close to it. So for me personally, I'm very excited to experience these games for the first time, as when this series went to the DS line, and I know they have some of the best installments in the DS line, it was whenever I kind of fell out of it and I got back into the series with Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, and then Sword and Shield most recently. And I put a ridiculous amount of hours into Let's Go because the shiny hunting was so much fun in the game for me. Like, I think I clocked in over 150 plus hours on that, just actually having fun going through and trying to collect as many shinies as possible. And while I didn't complete the shiny dex, it's something that I still, hope that as we get these newer games with more Pokemon in the overworld, like, that's what made the difference for me, is whenever you could see the shiny pop up in the overworld, that actually enticed me enough to be able to sit there for hours and hours and actually try to catch as many shinies as possible. But that's my little side rant on my personal history with Pokemon. This new gameplay footage that has come out today is actually very cool, just because it's exposing more of the game. It is definitely going over some facts that show off that they are bringing newer mechanics into these games, such as like the HM moves don't have to be tied to a Pokemon like you would have had to do originally. You can actually just use them whenever you need to, and you don't have to take up a slot of your moveset for whichever Pokemon just to tie an HM move to them. And I think it was either Sun and Moon or maybe X and Y where they actually made that change, but regardless, that's in there. You can also see the effectiveness of moves against other Pokemons when you're in battle. Then they have this entire interesting underground dungeon system, which I haven't really looked too much into, but it sounds like there are various like statues that you can find and explore and unlock as time goes on. And apparently these statues determine what, like, the type of the statue you uncover will actually determine the type of the Pokemon you are more likely to find. There's even some shiny statues that are not clear like what exactly they do, but maybe they affect your shiny rates in this underground dungeon. So, it's good to see Nintendo start to ramp up the media marketing push, and specifically the Pokemon company ramp up the media marketing push and actually get this into content creators' hands. If you guys want to see the full video, I will have it linked into the description down below, because it does do a good job kind of referencing just a little bit of the gameplay as we get closer to Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's release. But I do want to hear from you guys in the comments if you're planning on picking up either one of these games. Maybe you're getting the combo pack, as I know this particular installment has huge nostalgia for the Pokemon fans. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below how hyped you are for these games and if you'll be picking them up at release. Now, the next thing I want to share with you guys is actually a very interesting talking point around Metroid Dread and the effect that it is having on the entire series as a whole, as we are still very recent from its actual launch, as it just came out October 8th alongside of the Switch OLED model. And my only regret with this game so far is that I haven't had more time to play it, because it's just been a crazy week for me. But I'm hoping the back half of this week I will actually be playing through more of Metroid Dread, and I do plan to stream at least one day this week, so I'll keep you guys posted on the second channel when I decide to go live for that. As soon as I have the time, I will do it. But besides the point, what I want to cover with you guys is actually the big effect that Dread is having on all of the previous Metroid games across all of Nintendo's eShop. And I want to start off this conversation by reading through the VGC article that actually details exactly what's going on across the various Nintendo platforms and the spike that this series is seeing overall since Dread's release. Metroid Dread has triggered a franchise sales boost across multiple platforms. Wii U, 3DS, and Switch all see Samus return to the top of the charts. Metroid Dread has caused a boost for other titles in the series across Nintendo platforms. As first spotted by Twitter user Spinesparkers, entries from across the history of the franchise have seen a resurgence in sales thanks to the release and critical success of the latest entry. The Wii U charts see Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Prime Trilogy, and Super Metroid all make it to the top 10. On the 3DS charts, Metroid Samus Returns has climbed to number 3. Both Metroid and Super Metroid are also playable on Nintendo Switch's online NES and SNES service. This follows the news that Metroid Dread has enjoyed the series' biggest ever launch in the UK. While box copies of the games were slightly short of the biggest launch in the franchise history by less than 1,000 copies, digital sales, which are not accounted for, will likely have pushed the number far beyond the previous record. Dread has sold more than 3.5 times more copies at launch than the 2D Metroid game Metroid Samus Returns, which launched on 3DS in 2017, according to GamesIndustry.biz journalist Christopher Dring. Metroid is a smaller franchise for Nintendo, Dring wrote. Its 5th biggest Switch launch of the year, behind Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Zelda Skyward Sword, Monster Hunter Rise, and new Pokemon Snap. And then there's also that tweet that you can go in and look at from Shinesparkers that actually basically ranks where all of these are at, as you have Metroid Dread obviously on the Switch being ranked at number 1. You have the Wii U, have Metroid Fusion, which you guys have to play at some point. If you haven't been able to play it, you definitely need to go back and play it somehow on the Wii U is a great way, but obviously not a lot of people actually own the Wii U, which is why Nintendo needs to give us the ability to play this game on the Nintendo Switch, but we'll dive into that here in a second. Then Metroid Zero Mission is the definitive way to play Metroid 1, as it is a remake of that game. Then you have Metroid Prime Trilogy coming in at number 7, which I am so ready to hopefully play through those Prime games again sooner rather than later. Hopefully we see them on the Switch. And then obviously at number 9, Super Metroid, and on the 3DS, Metroid Samus Returns coming in at number 3, which is really the only way to play Samus Returns. I mean, you can go back and play it on the Game Boy, but this 3DS version absolutely takes that game to another level. So if you guys do want to play through that, I would highly recommend you to actually play the 3DS version versus the original Game Boy version. But that's just really exciting for me to see as a Metroid fan overall. You know, the fact that this Dread effect is actually having such a big sales impact across the entire history of the franchise really shows that, you know, there's a lot of new gamers that are probably picking this game up for the first time. I've definitely seen it in the comments myself. People who have never played Metroid games before saying that they are having so much fun with the exploration, the combat, and just all of the abilities that you unlock in Dread. And you know, I can't wait to play more of it. I think it's going to be one of the Game of the Year contenders for me. As much of a huge Zelda fan as I am, and I enjoyed every minute of Skyward Sword HD, I think it'll even eclipse that for me as far as just overall enjoyment. So I can't wait to play more of it personally. I know there's a lot of talk online recently too about people saying it's not worth $60, and I would argue that those people either haven't given it a fair enough shake and haven't really played it, or maybe they don't like a challenge or the old school type of like get good style games where you actually just have to keep trying until you progress, and they probably couldn't figure out how to beat the first Emmy, and then they just went on Twitter and went on rants about this game isn't worth $60, I hate this game, what Nintendo's scamming us fans. Like, no, that's not what's happening here at all. In fact, if you look at just the graphical quality of this game, while it is 2D, the transitions to smooth 3D cutscenes that happen all the time, and just the polish that the game has, you can't tell me that it's not worth $60, especially while you guys are out there buying Wii U ports that have no updates on them for $60 on the Switch also. So it's like, come on guys, like give Metroid Dread the credit it deserves. It's definitely going to be a Game of the Year contender, and even the Metacritic score has gone up to 89 since the previous 88 that it has seen. So this game it deserves all the high praise it's getting, and it's even having the effect on the series overall. So I am super pumped to be a Metroid fan right now. I can't wait to see this momentum continue to carry into the Prime games as we get closer to Prime 4's eventual release, and hopefully we get that heavily rumored Prime 1 remake or Metroid Prime Trilogy HD ported to the Switch sometime next year. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below what you think about the sales effect of Metroid Dread having on the other series, and if you're enjoying your playthrough so far, with of course no spoilers because I have not made it through the game yet, but I intend to this week. So I do look forward to hearing from you guys around all things Metroid Dread in the comments down below. Now, the last major story I want to share with you guys is one actually around the Nintendo Switch OLED model's launch. As if you guys don't remember, when this thing was initially unveiled, there was actually a lot of backlash at Nintendo for the fact that they are doing a price increase to $350. Sure, they're giving us an OLED display and a better kickstand with a larger display overall, but there's no performance improvement to be found on this console at all, other than that dock, which we can speculate around what that means, but that's probably just a future proof for something down the line. But there was a lot of talking points around that this thing's gonna flop, it won't sell very well at all, it'll probably be easy to find over the holiday season, and it's not gonna be one of those hot items that just flies off the shelves. And while we are just only getting UK numbers right now, there is some very strong evidence to suggest that this is a very successful launch for Nintendo, and it may indicate that enough of the existing Switch users that were out there were really ready for some kind of revision or update, such as myself. As obviously I'm a hardcore Nintendo fan, but I bought this thing even though I primarily play in docked mode, just because of all the hype around how good the OLED display looked. And I ended up getting really hyped as I got closer to its release, and now that I got my hands on with the console, I'm really enjoying playing it in handheld more often. So it did work out for me, but I know that there were still a lot of conflicting opinions out there about whether or not this would truly be a successful revision for Nintendo, or if it would be something that is more like, maybe it sells decent, but it doesn't sell great. And obviously we are getting closer to holiday season, but I want to start off this conversation around the initial data that we have that does come from VGC as well. So let's quickly hop over there to read through the article so we're on the same page with all the information around the Nintendo Switch OLED launch right now. Switch OLED sales comfortably outpaced lights in the UK. Newest model accounted for 70% of all Switch sales last week. Nintendo Switch OLED's launch week sales in the UK comfortably outperformed Switch Lights. That's according to data from GfK Entertainment provided to GamesIndustry.biz, which claims the system made a strong start in the UK. While no sales figures were published, the site says the Switch family of consoles enjoyed its 14th biggest sales week since the original system launched back in March of 2017. The 13 weeks in which the Switch performed better all fell during Christmas and Black Friday sales periods or the Switch's actual launch week. Switch Lite's launch week in 2019 is the 57th best week for the platform. Switch OLED, which launched alongside Metroid Dread, accounted for 70% of total platform sales last week. While Switch OLED features no major internal changes compared to previous models, it offers a larger 7-inch screen other than smaller additions such as a wide adjustable kickstand, a new dock, and enhanced audio. VGC's Nintendo Switch OLED review calls the system's new display a huge upgrade from the existing one. So at least according to the data that we have right now, it is looking like this is going to be a very successful revision for Nintendo overall, even though it's the same internals. I mean, I guess there is enough people out there who really wanted a better, brighter, more vibrant display, and just that difference from 6.2 to 7 inches is actually really notable, because until you see one of these things in person and you see how bright the display gets and how vivid the colors look, and you notice that with all the bezel missing, how much more immersive it looks, like it is actually a nice revision. Now you can argue whether or not it's really worth the extra $50 over the existing base model Switch, because if you really think about it, Nintendo has been manufacturing that original base model Switch since 2017 with no kind of actual price drop. It at least slots in the OLED model nicely to be able to eventually replace it, as that's what I can see Nintendo doing. Like, I think they'll slowly phase out. They'll probably do a price cut of down to like $250. We even saw the UK actually get a price cut on the base model Switch, but that surprisingly did not come to the US or other regions around the world. But I can definitely see Nintendo eventually phasing out the base model Switch and just making the OLED the new standard at maybe that $299. And maybe we get that dock enhanced upgrade down the line, and surprise, surprise, there's another revision that eventually supports 4K or just better, overall graphics performance. Like, I even see people in the comments say they would rather take 1080 60 frames per second, and I would say I completely agree with you on that, because 4K 4K is not the end all be all, but it doesn't take that much extra power if you use something like DLSS upscaling technology, which Nvidia has received very high praise for. So, you know, I think we could get 4K games and we could get enough performance improvement to run most games at 60 FPS without a problem at a reasonable price point. So at least this is good news for Nintendo overall. It will look good for investors, and it will look good for them to keep the ball rolling with planning for either the future Switch revisions, or maybe that next gen Switch is around the corner sooner than we think. But I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below if you have picked up an OLED model and what your initial thoughts and impressions are. Are you like me, where you're actually finding yourself playing it more in handheld now that it's here because of the bigger display and it looks so much better? Or do you feel like the $350 price point is just simply not worth it and you're really not even happy that you got it? Or maybe you've just been waiting for reviews and you're on the fence about whether or not you'll pick one up at all. So I do look forward to hearing from you on all the different stories we talked about today. So make sure you leave all your thoughts and opinions on all topics we've talked about here in the comments down below, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video and invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.